And now we analyze not only the habits in Borisa, but in general the food consumption and the food production in order to the sustainability. Then I show you what it means by sustainable food, the food production and consumption chain, the main issues in production and consumption chain, and the key issue of the food system. Okay, let's talk sustainable food. We have a definition of 2017 about the food system. Then it's a fusion of environment, people, input, processes, infrastructure, institution, etc. Activities related to the production, to the process, distribution, preparation, and consumption of food. Last but not least, the output of these activities, the socio-economic activities and environmental outcomes. A sustainable food system is a food system that ensures food security and nutrition for all, in order to the economic, social, and environmental system, basis to generate food security and nutrition for future generations, and to not compromise the system, the future system. Then, a sustainable diet is a diet that contributes to the good nutritional status and the long-term good health of the individual or of the community. Here you can see a scheme of the food production and consumption system in order to the chain of the production, from the farmers and the cattlemen to the consumers or others, for example, municipality. We start with the crops and the cattle growing. It means raw food production. In the second part, we have food processors. We have several stages, but for example, refinement, production, and the product, etc. The retailers, we have different types of retailers, directly from farmers or selling food to the commercial and private customers. And we have commercial customers and private customers, private consumers, sorry. We have the phase of remove and reuse food leftovers, and the final disposing or composting of food waste. For each phase, we have a common phase. It means the transport phase by diverse suppliers. About the farmers, we see that an industrialization food and the globalization of the chain. For example, we see that the food production is an industry now in our years. We have a lot of additional processes and steps with the intermediaries and between farmers and the consumers. The conventional agriculture, all the world, is still becoming more intensified, using pesticide and other technical devices. And food materials, they are transported over large distance, and the process, different countries, they require a lot of energy, for example, and we have the opposite in any part of the world. We have countries with a low labor cost. The farmers, they lose the power, its power in the food chain, because the farmers are increasing their dependency on energy and synthetic fertilizer inputs. The cost is dictated by the big food processors, not by a single industrial agriculture, by a single agriculture. In Italy, we use a lot of pesticide and fertilizers every year. In Europe, we are the bigger consumer of material. About the food processors, we see that the power is concentrated in a few hands. More than 70% of the agricultural goods produced in Europe are transformed into food industry products. The power is concentrated in fewer hands in the system. And the industry in Europe is world's leading exporter of food products and has a positive trade balance. About the retailers, we have the power concentrated in a few hands, because of fewer larger and larger retail chain share the market and fight mainly using low price policy. And the small stores can only survive only if they have special quality products or special services or innovative system. They can survive. In times of crisis, they are more vulnerable, and often big retailers can dictate the prices to agricultural producers and processors in the mainstream industrial system. It's a research of 2017, but nothing is changing. About the consumers, we have a contra trend, because in our last year, we see a declining trust in food safety. We must know what we buy. The slow food movement try to preserve the cultural cuisine and tradition, the local food and the local plants and vegetables, etc. We see an increasing of organic food consumption, and an increasing too of awareness of fair trade relationship with stakeholders in emerging and low-income context. Last, the role of the young people, for example, food activists, is increasing and very important. trying to change the system. About the disposing, in Italy, the separate collection of rubbish is generally diffused, especially in the north and the center of Italy. We have percentage of food waste by categories: fruit, vegetables, fish, meat, and milk daily produced. And an average weekly waste of a lot of euros, 5 euros per family nucleus. And for seeing the Italian families is a lot of euros worth it, totally worth it. Here you can see the type of disposing. Orange, the unusual things. Okay. In gray, parts used, leftover, and stored leftover. And it's a not low percentage. Fresh fruit, for example, unused is more than 70%. It's a drama. Then it's a topic that cereals like corn and soya are crops that are so easy to be industrialized. If you are what you eat, and especially if you eat industrial food, as 90% of Americans do, what you are is corn. It's by Maya and Michel Polan, it's specific about Americans, but in general, it's a problem diffused all around the world. Each person can eat around 150 kilos of cereal in 1 year. But in fact, we have an industrial agriculture about the cereal, and we arrive to 7 numbers of kilos, because the big producers of cereal, they use the product for industrial product, for alcoholics, to make for animal products, and only for 100 kilos directly consumed. Here you can see the energy consumption in agriculture, the energy cost for packaging, refrigeration, transportation, to retail, and household cooking are not considered as figures. Then here is only for the production. We use 31% of energy in liters of oil equivalent for manufacturing and inorganic fertilizers, and only 13% for the irrigation. %5 for pesticide and 8% for others. Corn and soya were the first crop to be genetically modified, and by the year 2000, more than half of corn and soya grown in the United States was genetically modified. We have a company lobby for GMO because I remember you that farmers are dependent on the companies because GMO plants often yield sterile seeds. Let's see key sustainability issues. We have not enough land for feeding the world's population. In 2050, the world population will be 10 million. We need 1.75 Earths to sustain all the population. And now, and in 2050, we need 3 Earths, but we have only one. Probably is not the growing population, but the unsustainable mainstream conventional industrialized production and consumption system is not sustainable. This 77% of the world's agricultural land is used only for livestock, for meat and dairy production that provide 80% of the world's calories and 37% of total protein. Plants are grown on less than 1/3 of the agricultural land and provides the rest of the calories and protein. Big problem. Okay, the main environmental impact is by the primary production stage, growing crops and cattle. Due to land and pesticide use, over-fertilization and energy consumption. About the energy use, we have relevant contributions from meat production, storage, cooling, for example, is a relevant problem, and transportation. The packaging is not a real problem. It contributes less than 5% to the total energy consumption. In northern Italy, we have 35% of separate collection of rubbish. It's generally diffused. It's not. It's a problem, but it's not very important in this study. And we have a high quantity of food loss disposed because not consumed, simply not consumed. In Italy, 20–30% of food produced. We can see that the overconsumption of meat it contributes to the unsustainability of the system. We have cereals like corn and soya. They are taking the place of traditional many crops, and they reduce the biodiversity. That is very important. The monoculture is highly dependent on artificial fertilizers, insecticide, herbicide, etc. And we have to water and soil pollution using the products. But the problem of GMO and unsustainability system. With antibiotic allergies, etc. And having healthy food, it's a problem in Italy, industrialized context, as far as people get disease related to overconsumption and not balanced diet. We need continued cultural diversity and food tradition to offer a different type of meal and food. And we need more information and transparency as final user of the food. Here we can see the strategies of the SDO that you see on the first part of the lesson. First three strategies, they are system life optimization, transportation and distribution reduction, and resource reduction. We saw together the problems and any effect in Italy and in industrialized context. And for example, about the system life optimization, we must analyze that high quantity of food is disposed because it has not been consumed, or disposable packaging are used for food, etc. Then to trying to solve this problem, the strategy that we need to use is the system life optimization, and strategies and sub-strategies, etc. and ideas, sustainable ideas. About transportation and distribution, we saw that, for example, several food have an overseas origin, increasing the excessive transportation, or trucks are mostly used. Then for this problem, we must analyze the system of the transport and distribution. Resource reduction, similar, and the other three strategies about the environmental sustainability, they are waste minimization and valorization, then food and packaging waste to landfill exist, but with a relatively low impact, and the silver, fish, glasses, etc. are mostly disposable. Then we must study the strategy to try to solve the problem. The conservation and biocompatibility strategies about the electricity, the energy, or the renewable food, the pesticide, etc. And last, the toxicity reduction. We have, lastly, three other strategies about socio-ethical sustainability, and they are the improve equity and justice in relation to stakeholders, working conditions of the workers in the sustainability chain, in the food chain, enable responsible and sustainable consumption. For example, the problem of not enough information and transparency for the final user, and enable a responsible and sustainable consumption. Loss of cultural diversity and food tradition, etc. That the strategies will be used by you, group by group, to analyze the theme of your exercise during the course, and to analyze and project a new system. A new system, obviously, more sustainable than possible.